great because when I look out, I see numbers. It's like a countdown on Facebook Live, but you gotta watch it. It's really cool. Anyway, it's all taking place up here. So this week is week 4 of our 5th week of 28 days of transformation. I mean, I'm blown away by the music and by the reading, which are both in this book, in this talk today. So I love the synchronicity of the universe when you just stay open, just allow. So over the past 3 weeks, we've been engaged in the process of transforming our lives. The first week, we did it by clearing out our physical space as well as our indwelling, our internal space. By listening to and beginning to answer the call that is within each and every one of us. And so we've had handouts every week to guide us each day in this process. The third week, which was last week, navigating the gap between who we thought we were and who we really are. That gap between transformation. You know, when you're here and you've done all of this work and you're transforming into something completely different, something so much happier and better than you've ever been before, there can be a gap in between. So that's what we talked about last week. And as I said, we've had handouts. You have handouts for this week too. This is the last handouts. All of these handouts have links on them in our newsletter and on our website, in case you want to begin this at any time. So next week will be the last week, and we'll take a deep and profound look next week in committing to transformation as a way of life. We're all transforming, whether we know it or not, in one way or another. Let's be conscious about it so that we can transform into what we want to experience while we're in these human vessels in this physical plane. Today, there is something very important that must be done. Today, we're going to look at how God uses trouble as a tool for transformation. So let me say that again. A little different. How God uses trouble as a tool for transformation. Now we know there's no trouble in the divine mind. There's no trouble. But you'll see where I'm going with this today. And the talk title is Transformation Through Trouble. But we could call it, if we wanted to, Adventures in Adversity. If we wanted to do that. And if you're ready to go on an adventure together this morning, that is what we are going to be doing. And we're going to start it out with a series of questions. You know, don't you, that the nature of creation is to evolve. That is the natural divine energy that we call God, is to evolve. It's always evolving out of itself, transforming and expanding. That is the nature of energy. And you know, don't you, that the universe uses chaos, disintegration, falling apart, stirring up, breaking down, explosions, all sorts of things that could look messy as vehicles for transformation. I love this Eastern adage, before brilliance, chaos. It's usually the way it works. And you know also that within all of that chaos, there is already a higher order. In the midst of all of this integration, falling apart, stirring up, breaking down, explosions, there is already a higher order potentiality. There is always that potentiality within any kind of experience, circumstance, within any instant, that divine potentiality. You do know that you are part of the nature of the universe. So what looks like chaos, disintegration, falling apart, stirring up, breaking down, explosions, whatever it is, things happening outside our control, This is life. Hello. Welcome to life. It happens. Things happen that are beyond our control. That's what we as spiritual beings having this human experience, that's what the human experience is. But we can use this for an expanded, deeper way of thinking. Use it for a higher expression of aliveness. Use these circumstances for a deeper experience of God. And it's completely, entirely up to us, the choice. It's always up to us, never anyone else. It's going to happen anyway. The chaos, the diagnosis, the betrayal, it goes on and on. These things happen in life. We are having human experiences and we are looking for the lesson in it. That's where the transformation takes place, when we have that awareness to look, to know that this is happening for a reason. It is all in how we approach it. That is always going to be the bottom line. It's happening, it is what it is. What do I do? How do I approach it? The challenges, the adversities, the trouble, these things are, as I said, are part of life. Our beautiful spiritual teachings do not promise a life that's trouble-free. Come on. If you go on a soccer field to play soccer, right? You better get ready to get your knees scraped. It's part of living life. We're here to live life, not to be caged up. It's part of the game. It's all part of the game. Challenges are part of life. Whenever our thinking needs to be expanded or transformed, but how we approach the game makes all the difference in the world. It's in our approach to it. You do know that, right?
Yeah.
Yes. I'm very glad to hear that. And if you don't, that's fine. Just hang out with us long enough, you'll get it. And since we know that, and it's really good to know that this is the game of life, we're all playing it. So, it's all part of the evolving, the expansion, the transformation. So, of course, then we approach it with wanting to squeeze every last drop or benefit out of our next revolution around the spiral of evolution. As we evolve, as we look for the lesson in every experience. Because truly there always is, there really is. But really, we must identify the problem. Otherwise, we could be doing a spiritual bypass. And that's what a lot of people in these spiritual teachings will do. They will pretend it's not happening and just do a spiritual bypass, which we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that. We need to recognize what is going on. Don't pretend it's not going on, because it is. Don't deny it. Identify it. If we are honest, there is always one that we can find to identify the problem. And then bring a certain, make these papers boring, and then bring a certain mind to it. Be transformed by the renewal of our mind. We talked about that in one of the talks. Being transformed by the renewal of our mind, we don't get stuck in the old way of thinking. We are always evolving when we open up to it. When we are not shut up. Ernest Holmes tells us open at the top. That's what he meant. That's what he meant. So there are three ways that we can bring our mind to each and every challenge, situation we have. And the first one doesn't really serve us. The second one does serve us. And the third one will take us a little further. But these moves are moves toward our evolution. as the universe is always evolving and we are part of the universe, then it would be our nature to always evolve. So the first one would be upset. This is the one that doesn't really serve us. Upset when we start to resist what is. Not being in the isness of it, but resist it. Let me say that again. Upset comes when we resist what is. And we move into our minds with thoughts like these. Maybe life is hard. This always happens to me. Not this again. What now? Again? This isn't fair, which I never really understood, because what does fair mean anyway? This isn't fair, but I hear people say this. What? This just isn't fair. It's life, right? Yeah. After all I do on this planet, in this world, this is how I'm treated. All of this stuff. We constantly get upset, and we're resisting what is. This happens when we resist what is. Anyone ever done anything like that? Try to push it away. Yeah. Anyone doing it right now with a situation for you to think on? Is this approach going to support our evolution, our expansion, our thinking, our greater experience of the divine as we move through this life? The more that we practice this, the more we get to hear that voice of the divine moving through us. And it is not that reading was so perfect, because I'm actually going to quote Eckhart Tolle from the New Earth, which she did not know about. So that's what I mean, the synchronicity of life, when you let it happen. But I don't think we want to be resisting. But this is an important one, and it's a very important but. It may be necessary for a short time. We don't want to do a spiritual bypass. So it's important that we feel our feelings. We must feel what we are going through. We stomp our feet a little bit, if you're like me. We throw ourselves a little itty-bitty pity party. You know, oh, ain't this awful? I can't believe this is happening. You know, anything like that. If you sound like me, that's what I sound like when I'm... But it's okay. That's the thing, we need to give ourselves permission to be okay with feeling the way we feel if we don't like it. And it really is all right. It supports our evolution. But and I've said this so many times, but it's so true. It's when you're going through hell, keep going. Don't stop to build a condo. I can't say that enough. There are so many people that get stuck in the feeling. And when you get stuck in that pity party, you're creating more of that pity party. So we acknowledge it. We let the ego have its way and jump up and down, or whatever we do, curse, whatever we do. But then we always remember there's a power within me that is so much more than any situation. So there are other ways. Second approach is to stay neutral. And here is a story, a true story actually, to illustrate the second way of being. And it is told in Eckhart Tolle's book, The New Earth. So cool. It's about Krishnamurti. And if you know Krishnamurti, oh my God, I was studying him in the 80s. He is a great sage, an incredible human being, and a teacher who traipsed around the world for decades, teaching the message of truth and oneness in his own way. People followed him around for 20 or 30 years, and they couldn't grasp this simple message that he was delivering. One night, he said to his followers, "I'm going to give you my secret." They knew he had something that they couldn't get their minds wrapped around. And so everyone sat up straight. They straightened right up. And finally, after all this time, he's going to say it. And what he said was, "I don't mind what happens. Try that. I don't mind what happens. It's a big one. It's huge. This could be a big improvement for some of us, or perhaps for all of us at some time. And it's not an easy concept to come to terms with, but it's good to know, to get this information, because at some point we might need to use it. That whatever is happening right now, really, no big deal would be a gigantic step. To say this is no big deal, in the grand scheme of life, this is not a big deal. Most things do pass. And to me, that is a most powerful place to be, and I'm still working on that one, and I probably will be for the rest of my life. To be okay with what is. This is the second way of being neutral. And it might sound like this. In the big scheme of things, this is not a problem. I don't know how or where or when I'm going to get out of it, but I don't know what the lesson is in it, but I'm going to be busy looking for it. And to me, that's just staying open, because you do get answers for every question that you ask. The universal mind is always working through us, and that's the belief that we hold. And that brings us to the third approach to life: excitement. With enough practice and enough time spent in neutral, excitement is not that far off. One day we might just be excited that we can't even believe it. It doesn't make sense, and I'm going to give you an example, and yet we are. There is one power, God the good. We either believe it or we don't. Believe it or you don't. If you don't believe, God is good. Everybody says, all the time. Well, if it's all the time, do you believe that or not? You might get a diagnosis of cancer. You get fired. You feel sabotaged in a relationship, or whatever it is. Who would you be in the moment of understanding that this too is for you? It's not against you, it's for you, and this too is good. And again, I'm bringing up something that was said earlier. We're having her in February. Reverend Martha Creek, New Thought minister and a dear friend of ours, tells of her experience with cancer. She got to minister to the doctors, the nurses, the surgical staff, the anesthesiologists throughout the journey of this process that she went through, knowing that God is all and all is peace, not resisting what is. And if you know Martha, you know you can hear her saying these things. But being at peace with what is. She told her doctors, I want you to know that this is not a problem for me. This is just a part of life. I'm suited up in life. Can you hear her saying that? I can hear her. It's not a problem for me. She has a southern accent. I'm not going to cry. But when Martha delivers it, it's with a southern accent. It's really great. Anyway, she wanted to be the person who changes the way future generations view and take a look at cancer. And because of the way she showed up, the doctors and the nurses and the attendees and the anesthesiologists, etc., had a different experience of it. 3 ways of being. 3 ways of being. But before I go into just summarizing that up, I don't think she would mind, but we have a dear member here, Priscilla. And I thought of her with this. Priscilla is in her late 80s and very feisty. Incredible person, she's usually here. And recently she got 2 hips replaced, one at a time. But I remember talking to her, and she went into each one of those with this positive mindset. And she was like a ray of sunshine everywhere she went. Her experience and the experiences of all the people around her were completely different. They probably might be quoting her now because she changed lives, because she looked at it is what it is. I'm walking into this with a positive mindset. And it's amazing. She's amazing. So the three ways of being: old, painful, stressful way, resisting what is; neutral, which is open and counting our blessings; third is excited to see what good that's going to unfold from whatever is taking place. A life of joy and happiness, setting examples, being the model. Then you move into this third way. When you do move into this third way, you are putting God first. You're putting the divinity first. Divine paves the way for us if we would stop resisting it. And it changes everything. A recognition that there is no thing that is greater than God. There is nothing that exists, no person that can threaten you, or no person that can harm you in any way that is greater than the power of God. No one. And it changes everything. It really does. It gives you power and strength. We went through a situation here a few years ago, a joyful gathering. And I was these people can do a lot of harm to joyful gathering. And there was a lot of fear going around there. And I'm like, no, God is in charge here. Nobody is more powerful than the divine being that is in charge, that created us. No one, no thing is greater. That's the belief we want to deepen into as we go through life. As we go through life. Are we remembering that within the problem itself, the orchestration of a possibility of a much higher order of living is right there. It's right there. So we bring a new thinking, transformed mind to whatever trouble we are facing this day. Such a great way to live life. It really is. For a moment today, you might find yourself thinking in an expanded way. Open up and say to yourself, in fact, repeat this after me. You're going to repeat this after me. It's more powerful that way. Right where I am.
Right where I am.
The wisdom of the universe is.
The wisdom of the universe is.
Right where I am.
Right where I am.
Answers to every question are accessible.
Answers to every question is accessible.
Because right where I am,
Right where I am.
God is.
God is.
The problem I'm facing
The problem I'm facing
cannot be solved
cannot be solved.
at the level of thinking that created it.
At the level of thinking that created it.
There is another level of thinking available.
There is another level of thinking available.
It is available right where I am.
It is available right where I am.
Because right where I am,
Because right where I am,
God is.
God is.
Right? That's our prayer. So, talking about prayer, I think that we'll anchor this in affirmative prayer, spiritual mind treatment. So let's just take a breath together. I'm playing up here, don't I? We're going to take that breath. I don't care. It is what it is. Right? Thank you. So let's just take that breath together, just knowing there is one power for good. That power is forever in operation, forever expanding, extending, and expressing itself through life, through all that is. There is nothing that exists that is outside this powerful energy. It is beyond human comprehension. It is so vast, so perfect in every way. And even when there is seeming chaos in planets and systems, there is always a divine order at the root, the core, the heart of every single aspect of that looking like chaos stuff. Because God is always present and God is always good. And this God is an energy that fills each and every one of us. We are expressions of that God. We are that God. We are that energy. It is the eternal part of us that can never die, that is always alive, and that is always there to support us in every way that we open our minds and our hearts and our very beings to. Infinite potential is always available to us when we open ourselves up and allow this good to direct us, to guide us. We embrace it. We know that there's always something better. And that knowing allows us to move, to transform, to proceed with a peace that we might not have had before. I give thanks for knowing that. I know that each and every person here and each and every person everywhere is filled with the power of peace, is filled with that loving energy of transformation, being transformed from one way of thinking to a higher way of thinking, one that benefits each and every one of us. I am so grateful to know this, to be this, to feel this. I am so grateful for the good that is coming into each and everyone's life. I am so good for the grace of God that rains down upon us all of the time, that indwells us and expands within us all of the time. I give thanks for this, knowing it is all good, it is all God, and so it is.
And so it is.